Welcome to the Performance Prescription Lab podcast and our Paris 2024 special episodes. On the Performance Prescription Lab podcast, we delve into the fascinating world of sports pharmacy and athlete care. I'm Nilhan, and alongside me is my dear co-host Jess.
Hello, everybody. Today we're diving into a truly unique topic, the complex medical needs and care of Olympians and their support staff during the Olympics. I found this super interesting researching this podcast, and we're going to explore the complex needs of the athletes and the support staff, the data and the research that we found from previous Olympics on the medical needs that have been treated, and then real world experiences that illustrate the critical role of medical service in ensuring peak performance and well-being. We also want to give you a little insight into these state-of-the-art medical facilities set up in the Olympic Village and show how sports pharmacists have helped lead clinical services during prior Olympics.
This is so exciting, Jess, and I just want to emphasize that this is another important role that sports pharmacists have. We, of course, are the experts of sports pharmacology, and this expertise is very valuable when these major sporting events, even local sporting events, are organized. We are there to support the athletes. Speaking about the Olympics isn't just a showcase of extraordinary athletic talent. It is also a massive logistical and medical challenge. I've been involved in a world championship, and that was not a huge event like an Olympic, but it was quite challenging from my perspective. So I congratulate everyone who has been managed to organize such important major events. Thousands of athletes and support staff worldwide are attending, and then according to that, the medical needs are vast and varied. There are certain health problems one expects to see among elite athletes, for example, stress fractures, muscle strains. Other musculoskeletal injuries result from repeatedly pushing the human body to its limit and even beyond the limit. But then the unexpected cold and flu, viruses, and so much more. Whether you're an athlete, a healthcare professional, or simply a sports enthusiast listening, there is something here for everyone in this episode.
So I'll start off with a little trivia. The first Olympic Village was built in Los Angeles in 1932 to help ensure the health and safety of athletes. There was a small hospital built in the village, and it provided free of charge healthcare for the athletes. So since 1932, every Olympic Village has featured a dedicated 24-hour healthcare facility that provides free healthcare to anyone involved in the Olympics. It was interesting because it wasn't until 2019 that the IOC published the first Olympics and Paralympic model formulary, which actually helped determine and standardize the set of medications that will be made available at every Olympics and Paralympics. And this was finally developed to give consistent, safe, and clinically relevant selections that also encompassed the prescribing patterns from all team physicians and countries. And this formulary was first used in Tokyo 2020. And as we know, every Olympics in recent years has had its own set of health challenges. So we had Beijing in 2008 that the committees suggested they were concerned about the air quality and asthma and bird flu. Then we went to Rio and it had Zika virus and water quality. Tokyo 2020, as we all know, was COVID. This year in Paris, they're looking at possibly is the Seine River going to have some issues with safety and also the heat in Paris this year. So definitely each Olympics has its own set of challenges. Milham, there were some publications that broke down the incidences of injuries and illness during Tokyo 2020. Do you want to give our listeners a little insight into the medical teams what they might see based on these past summer games?
Yeah, these are very valuable data. I'm happy to share. So data from Tokyo was published to describe the incidence of injuries and illnesses sustained during the Tokyo Summer Olympic Games from 23rd of July to 8th of August in 2021. In total, 11,315 athletes, 48% were women, and 52% of these athletes were men. From 206 national Olympic committees were followed prospectively for the occurrence of injury and illnesses. Is a huge study, in my opinion. And
Yeah.
National Olympic Committees and Tokyo 2020 medical staff reported 1,035 injuries, 438 illnesses, equaling to 9.1 injuries and 3.9 illnesses per 100 athletes over the 17-day period. Altogether, 9% of the athletes incurred at least one injury, 4% of the athletes at least one illness. The injury incidence was highest in boxing, BMX racing, BMX freestyle, and skateboarding. Also karate, handball, of which both BMX freestyle and skateboarding were new events. And lowest in diving, road cycling, rowing, marathon swimming, and shooting. These were 1 to 2%. Marathon and artistic swimming presented the highest illness incidences, both 8%, followed by skateboarding and karate, both 7%. In the study period, COVID-19 affected 18 athletes, accounting for 4% of an illness and 0.16 of all athletes. I think the measures were pretty good. And then exertional heat illness affected 78 athletes. This is 18% of all illnesses and 0.7 of all athletes. The majority resulting in no time lost from sport. So this was also a good result.
I think I read an interview with Jack Tatum, who's a professor of sports medicine at the University of British Columbia and served as chief medical officer for the Vancouver Games. And basically he quoted and said, you have to be prepared to treat anything and everything. The data I saw, he was talking about London, then they started looking at London 2012, and they reported, again, similar, about 10% of the athletes in competition will suffer an injury, and about 7% will come in contact with an illness. Again, like I said, like you said, the Tokyo 2020, that was a lower number, but I think there was so many safety checks and so much set up during that we did probably see a lower number than what we normally will. And they see everything from head colds to hospital admissions for pelvic fractures. They have head injuries. They see everything. And the other part of this that I want you to kind of dive into is the things I never thought of when researching this is the benefits that the smaller countries and the support staff get from coming to the Olympics due to all of this medical facility.
Smaller teams and nations, they don't have access to medical services, and usually they are maybe private and exclusive. And in these cases, in these events, simply in the Olympic or Paralympic village, these polyclinics, access to pharmacy, for example, access to medicines is huge. I really wish that this would be, of course, sustainable, but we know that some countries have limitations. If we look at the Rio Games in 2016, medical center ran non-stop, and the publication stated that they provided over 1,000 dental checks, 450 dental x-rays, 300 specialized mouth guards, and 1,730 eye examinations, and more than 1,400 sets of prescription glasses. And due to lack of access and a high cost, many Olympians unfortunately are forced to forego medical care. What about the larger teams? We are happy that smaller countries, smaller teams have access to better healthcare compared to their countries. But I guess there is also another state of art in some larger teams, larger countries. What about some insights from these, Jess?
Yeah, so larger teams, so we're looking at think like US, Australia, they provide medical care for their athletes and officials through their own medical headquarters located in an Olympic Village. There is 24-hour services also with doctors, nurses, physios, massage therapists, and other sports medicine professionals. Occasionally, the medical staff will also go to the venues and provide extra support for athletes, especially even helping out teams that don't have dedicated medical staff. It's really interesting because many teams do have regular medical staff involved in their sport throughout the year and not just at the Olympics. They travel to other events and they provide medical services and maintain contact throughout the training with those athletes. Often these providers are integrated within the National Olympic Committee within the country, but there's usually limited positions, meaning this is restricted. Mostly we see in bigger sports, such as like swimming or team sports like hockey or football. And often these doctors and physios are crucial because they have a long history with these athletes and a familiarity. I mean, could you imagine in a diverse sport such as track and field, the medical team has to actually cover athletes in multiple venues, warming up, the main stadium, roads on marathons, and the different types of athletes. We have sprinters, we have marathon runners, we have javelin throwers. Um, it was pretty cool because they recently announced the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Committee and their medical staff and volunteer teams, which was entrusted. They're going to care for almost 850 U.S. athletes representing 53 sports in the Olympic and Paralympic Games. And there's an additional 30 sports medicine staff on the ground during the Olympics and Paralympic Games. And the United States Olympic Paralympic Committee will bring additional 28 medical professionals to help provide holistic care to Team USA. So super interesting to see. They have psychologists, they have everything.
Mhm.
Sadly, there are no pharmacists on Team USA yet, but hopefully
Yeah.
we'll see that change in the coming years.
Yeah.
Um, Neelam, I know you've had the pleasure of working with Mark Stewart, who had the honor of serving as the clinical lead in the 2016 Rio Games. So can you give us a little insight into kind of the job of a sports pharmacist in his role in the Olympics?
Sure. So Mark Stewart is kind of an important person in the sports pharmacy sphere, and I had the pleasure to be his student in IOC's Drugs and Sport course. And there were many publications that we have read through that course certificate program. And one of the interviews that was done with Mark Stewart, he discussed his role in the run-up to Rio 2016, which included helping select 300 medicines from the Olympic formulary, advising on the design of the premises, pharmacy services, establishing a governance framework for the pharmacy service itself, and providing training to pharmacists and other healthcare professionals on drugs in sports. So it's a huge responsibility. During the Rio Games in August 2016, he stated he was responsible for overseeing the governance aspects of pharmacy services on behalf of the IOC Medical Commission Games Group, also monitoring patterns of medicine usage by athletes and spectators to assess public health surveillance. Additionally, he inspected doping control stations at Olympic venues to ensure that the operations are being run in accordance to the WADA regulations. And I also supported athletes undergoing the IOC TUE process. Check out our latest episode on the TUEs, and he basically helped if they require banned drugs for legitimate therapeutic use. So many studies, many surveillance studies have been published after each major game. So I always see Mark Stewart in the authors, and he always gave insights about the medicine use. And there are also specific publications. I encourage all listeners to go and search for these papers which can give a good insight on work of sports pharmacists and specific data on medicines used in each major game. I think something we don't think about is that there is more than just the athletes. Not only are health professionals tasked with helping athletes, but they must also tend to volunteers, members of the media, coaches, dignitaries, support staff, and spectators. This is why the medical needs at the Olympics are so big. It's not just the athletes. From my humble experience, I worked in this World Championship, and we had visitors to the medical tent who were working to set up the entire championship site, or athletes who had a heat stroke. So the medical needs are complex. Some of them are very basic. Some of them are really in depth.
I have read from previous Olympics there's they do put all into these Olympic Games. So there's little concern over the finances, and there's obviously no shortage of clinicians or people wanting to help. And they do have a captive audience. Like you said, they're helping everybody. They're looking at the athletes that want to win medals and perform their best. They're looking at coaches that want to be there. So it is definitely just this like little capsule of interesting. It's also interesting when I was reading about, all the services that they offer at the Polyclinic in Olympic Village, and it truly resembles a small hospital. They have primary care and sports medicine. They have optometry, ophthalmology, dental care, as you talked about. They have medical imaging, podiatry. Then they even have all the specialists on call from psychiatry to gastroenterology and dermatology. I think it's so amazing to see all these various healthcare professionals at the Olympics. And they're there for reasons, and you have all these different um, healthcare providers that aren't even physicians. So you would have maybe acupuncturists and massage therapists, people that
Mhm.
specialize in joint manipulation, because there are, like we talked about, strict rules on injectables such as glucocorticoids during the games. So maybe possibly using acupuncture or massage therapy instead of a corticosteroid can get you to perform. So I think it's just interesting to see this huge world all come together to support the Olympics. It was really interesting in Vancouver, so 2010, that was a winter games. They described it pretty in depth about they actually had two major clinics, one in Vancouver and one in Whistler. The clinics were over 10,000 square feet. The preparations took 4.5 years and estimated that almost 9,000 people received medical care. They had also two 54-foot trailers that contained on-site operating rooms, trauma beds, and blood supplies. Things you don't think about at an Olympic Games, trauma rooms and operating rooms.
I just want to be an athlete again, or spectator. You would also
Yes.
get experience. There are severe injuries that occur, as we just discussed, but much of the work done by medical professionals at the Olympic and Paralympic Games could be basic and primary care. At the Vancouver Games, you just shared a percentage of athletes, many of whom were too busy training to visit their dentist, received dental screening, uncovering numerous infections that could have led to chronic inflammation and other health problems. That's where also sports dentistry comes into place, which is an area we can tackle in our next episodes. And also the eye care stations also tend to be really busy at the games, especially free glasses and contact lenses are up for grabs. The free medical care and supplies prove particularly attractive to athletes from countries with limited access to first-rate healthcare, as we just discussed. Since we are sports pharmacists, let's dive into a little bit far more in pharmacy services.
So we're going to talk about the 19 days of the London Olympics. There was an estimated over 10,000 athletes from 205 nations and over 4,000 athletes at the Paralympic Games. There are 20,000 accredited media people and a workforce of over 200,000 volunteers, paid workers, and contractors. And we can't forget about the spectators. There was over 8 million tickets sold for the London Olympics. The medical staff and volunteers, as we've talked about, must be highly organized to provide care in so many different locations. In London, there were 302 events in 32 different venues. So you can see that this is not only a big operation, but a diverse operation. People may not appreciate the scale of pharmacy services even required at the Olympic and Paralympic Games. So in London 2012, there were over 100 volunteer pharmacists working across three athlete village pharmacies through the Paralympic and Olympic Games. There were an additional 6 pharmacies to serve the three athlete villages, media village, and spectator pharmacies. In addition, there were more than a dozen community pharmacies that served the athletes in 5 regional cities during the Olympic football games and the teams that traveled across the UK at that point with the Olympic torch relay. There's some publications out there that showed the scope of pharmacy services in London, and the scope was there were 3 fully equipped outpatient pharmacies and 3 in each of the villages. They helped write the Olympic and Paralympic pharmacy guides, incorporating into a drug formulary the development of policy and procedures for the operation of pharmacy services at all games and venues for healthcare professionals. They helped to provide reliable systems for drug supply and stock controls at the games, to help recruit, educate, and train pharmacy volunteers, to run minor ailment schemes or systems for non-athletes and accredited personnel, and to provide comprehensive medical information for all medical personnel. It was interesting because in the London Games, they dispensed close to 6,000 prescription items written by local UK doctors for around 1,000 visiting and 1,000 visiting team doctors from over 205 countries. 6,000 prescriptions, I feel like is a lot, but
Yeah.
what about Tokyo? So we would think Tokyo with COVID. We did a little bit talking about the injuries and everything. What did they see of with Tokyo compared to London?
Yeah. Well, if we compare Tokyo to London Games, the volume of the prescriptions was lower than the London
Oh,
Games. Yeah, it was infirmed that this was due to true infection control measures as well as enhanced pre-entry medical checkups before entering Japan, which reduced the incidence of diseases. So that was a very isolated and sterile process. The number of prescriptions issued during the Olympics and Paralympics were 1,120 and 1,022 respectively. Prescriptions issued at Fever Clinic accounted for 4% of the total number, and no influenza antiviral medications were prescribed. I'm not surprised. Though medications to alleviate cold-like symptoms were issued. Compared to the London 2012 games, there was a decrease in the number of prescriptions. So the number of prescriptions decreased 59%.
wow.
So when you take very strict measures, then you see less illnesses, of course. Just
It'll be
is there?
interesting to see what happens this in Paris.
Yes, we'll see. I guess every Olympic and Paralympic Games are learning. All these publications lead to improving the services. So we'll see how this is going to go, and we are looking forward to learning how the services are being held and provided there, so that we can grab all these learnings and prepare for the
Yeah.
next games, which is going to be Los Angeles in
Yep. 2028.
2028, and we really hope that US teams and all other teams will employ a sports pharmacist by then. Jess, is there any information out about what we might see in Paris 2024 for medical facilities?
Yeah, so far what's come out is that they are going to have they're going to have MRIs, radio tables, ultrasounds. They're going to, there's services for unscheduled care medicine, obviously 24/7 openings in the hospitals. And then there's also consultations for specializations such as sports medicine, orthopedic surgery, OB, cardiology, dental services, as we've talked about, eye services, physio massage. It's so amazing to see all that they will do to service these over 10,000 athletes and over 4,000 Paralympic athletes. I think we also can't forget that there's over 400 very high level horses present. So there will be a whole team of qualified veterinarians to help treat our horses at these events, which we have not mentioned before. The medical staff will provide care for 32 Olympic sports, including some additional sports such as climbing, surfing, kiteboarding, and breakdancing, which are new. So this means that there will be 48 disciplines spread throughout the country, and a couple, surfing is actually in Tahiti, and there's 22 Paralympic sports. So what they're looking at for the extended Olympic family and the media is about 40,000 volunteers and the entire workforce, including foreign medical delegations, importing of medications to help facilitate this. I mean, I think we can say it's just going to be a massive, incredible feat to see how this is handled. One other thing that we also wanted to kind of address is that they do in these villages also insist on making sure that we listen to the patients and you listen to their religious and cultural norms and not just force your ideals of being a provider, say in France or in the US, on somebody. So you're definitely being open to this whole world experience. And it's super cool because we're super proud of sports pharmacists that many of our colleagues, such as Mark Stewart, Claire Anderson, and Somer Helvaka, will be at the Paris 2024 Olympic Village. And they're there to help improve the safety and effective use of medications in the Olympic Games. And later in the Paris 2024 special episodes, we will host some of our sports pharmacists to share their unique insights for being at the games. So stay tuned for those. Neilham, you want to highlight something that will be a first at the Paris 2024 Games for our nursing moms?
Yeah, that is a very nice story I would like to share, and it's from Alison Felix, a retired member of the Team USA. She's one of the most decorated female track and field Olympian ever and is headed to the Paris Games with a different objective. Felix has teamed up with Pampers to create the first ever Pampers nursery in the athletes' village at the Paris Olympics. So this is quite exciting in the context of also gender equity and access to equity in the access to healthcare. Felix opened herself up to growing her family in 2018. The challenges of postpartum recovery, high childcare costs, and lack of mom and child friendly spaces at the Olympics made balancing motherhood and athletics very difficult. So when Felix retired in 2022, she made it her mission to show moms that not only could they succeed in both roles, but she would also be there to provide them the support they needed. She quoted that she just knew that how difficult it was compete at the top level after she had her daughter, and some practical things were really hard for her. So then she joined the Athletes Commission of the IOC, and she wanted to be the voice for athlete moms and just take away one less thing for them to worry about in pressure of competition. So she partnered with Pampers, and all athletes at 2024 Paris Games will have free access to the first ever nursery in the Olympic Village. And the nursery will offer a space for Olympic moms to bond with, nurse, and play with their babies, helping to alleviate some of the pressures of competition. This is such a heartwarming story, and she's such a good role model. So just wanted to congratulate her and this role model being a state-of-art example in the coming games. I really hope that this would be sustained in the next ones.
I love it. I think it speaks to what we've talked about before about being the first Olympic Games where there's equal number of male and female athletes, the promotion of female sport, and just showing how incredible like moms can still be athletes even after they have kids, and being able to have a safe space to bond with and nurse their babies while still competing is just so powerful and so amazing. So I love this story. And I kind of hope that this episode gives everyone a helpful overview of the medical and pharmacy services at the Olympics, giving you previous insight from previous games and first that we're going to see in Paris 2024 that helps inspire us all. We are very excited again to witness the greatest athletes coming together for the Olympic values of excellence, friendship, and respect, while challenging their limits, breaking records, and making all of us so proud.
Well, stay tuned for more on our special Paris 2024 episodes. Again, I invite you to let us know what you would like to hear in the coming episodes in the Q&A or comment sections. As the Paralympics are upcoming next, we will be deep diving into the world of Paralympics as well. And as sports pharmacists, our mission is to provide accurate and evidence-based information to optimize your health and performance. When it comes to your health and well-being choices, consult with your physician or pharmacist. Even sports pharmacists prioritize safety and always make informed decisions. Thank you very much for joining us today on the Performance Prescription Lab podcast. We look forward to sharing more valuable scientific and actionable insights in our next episode.